Hi guys, welcome back to my kitchen. For today's video, we're going to be here. We're going to be making 5 different sourdough bread products. Not just bread, but using the sourdough as our yeast. I am doing this over multiple days. It's not all happening on the same day. Today I actually made some sourdough donuts. I'm very excited to share that with you. I am going to link whatever recipes I can down below. Whatever I don't have a link for, I will type up for you, which I think is only one. Actually, 2. Yeah, 2 of them. So let me tell you what we're making, and I'm not going to tell you the order that I have it, but I will have timestamps for you down below so that you can see over there and jump ahead to wherever you want to see if you want to see anything specific. We're going to start, so we're starting with our sourdough donuts. We are also going to make some sourdough sandwich rolls. I'm going to make some as long rolls, some as round rolls, and we're going to see which one we like better. I'm going to make a sourdough focaccia. I'm very excited to try that. My last sourdough video, which if you want to see that, I can link it for you in the cards. I tried a focaccia, it didn't work out. I found a different one and I'm excited to try it. I love focaccia. It is so delicious. So if I find a good recipe, I'm excited that we'll be able to make it again and again. We are going to make some sourdough pizza. And last, we're going to make some sourdough crackers, which you can use discard or the starter for. So let's get right into it, starting with our donuts. I got my pot on the scale. I'm going to add in some almond milk. We're going to do 350 grams of this. Now this is something that's a longer process. Usually if you would be making donuts at home, you would make the dough, and within a few hours you would have them fried up and ready to enjoy. With this, it's more than a 24-hour process. So I fed the starter first thing in the morning, and we're only going to have this tomorrow. Now we're going to add 70 grams of sugar. So I made this for the first time on Hanukkah, which finished. That was my reminder to make this dough because I want to be on top of the process so that it can go into the fridge at a decent time. Yes, I made this the first time on Hanukkah and we absolutely loved it. We couldn't get enough of it. The recipe does call to make a homemade custard, and it has a recipe for it. That custard didn't work for me, so I made a different custard that has worked for me in the past. But this time around, we just need a little bit of sugar, a little bit of salt. I don't want to overdo it, so I'm going to do it with a teaspoon. This time around, I'm not going to make the custard. I got a store-bought custard, and we're going to enjoy that in our donuts, whoever wants. But it's a treat, and we loved it, and I just wanted to show it to you guys. Make it with you guys, actually. Okay. So we're adding sugar, salt, and oil. Okay. So we're going to do 60 grams of oil. Now we're going to get this over the heat. I'm going to do it over here, actually, because that one's really big. That flame. I actually have tonight's dinner going already. Let me bring you closer so that you can see. So I'm going to turn on the heat. And we're going to leave it on here and mix it until all of the sugar is dissolved. I think we're there. I don't feel any more sugar. Okay, so I'm going to turn off the heat. And we're going to let this cool off for a minute before we continue. Once the almond mixture cooled, I added in an egg, vanilla extract, and lemon juice. So we're going to get this mixture into our mixer. I'm trying to remember how I did it last time that I measured out the starter. Did I measure out the starter first? Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to weigh out how much starter I have, and we're going to remove 95 grams. 95 exactly. Okay, now for the flour, we're going to slowly add it in, but we're going to add 600 grams of all-purpose flour and 100 grams of bread flour or high gluten flour. And I think I'll do the same thing. I'll get my flour jar onto the scale and deduct the 600 grams. And then same thing for the bread flour. I'm going to get my splash guard on. I'm going to get my jar onto the scale. I'm going to clear it, and the negative is how much I took off. So we want to get to negative 600. And now I'm adding the bread flour. Now we're going to let this mix for about 10 minutes until the dough comes together nicely. Not exactly 10 minutes yet, but this feels like a good dough. So let me take this off of the machine. I'm going to put the machine away, and then we'll come back together and I'll show you what we do next. Okay, so we've got a bowl here. I'm going to spray it with some oil spray. And we're going to transfer our dough into this bowl. So because this is an enriched dough means that it has the egg and it has the almond milk and vanilla. We can't just do stretch and folds, which I would normally do with sourdough, like we did with our focaccia, and we do with breads. We have the machine do the work for us. So now, at this point, all we have to do is let it rise. But again, because this is an enriched dough, it's going to take a little bit longer. So, what we need to do is cover this with a saran wrap and a towel, and we're going to let this rest for 8 to 10 hours on a countertop in a warm spot in the kitchen. And after 8 to 10 hours, we're going to set this in the fridge overnight. Tomorrow, we're going to come back to it. We're going to shape it and fry it then. So, I guess maybe I'll show you guys what it looks like before I set it in the fridge tonight. It might just be the last thing I do right before going to bed, so I might not remember to record it for you guys what it looks like then, but we'll definitely see you in the morning and see what this did. Okay, it's now the next morning. This has sat in the fridge overnight. It sat on the counter all day to let it rise. At night I set it in the fridge overnight, and I took it out of the fridge about an hour and 50 minutes ago to let it come to room temperature a little bit. It doesn't look like it's going to come out. I'm going to have to help it out. And we're ready to shape this now. So what we're going to do is we're going to roll this out to a thickness that I like. Now I've got some parchment paper squares, and we're going to lay them out as I cut these. I'm just going to use a glass cup and get these out. I'm going to do this until I've used all of this dough. What happened here? This will be a deformed donut. It'll still be delicious. So if you have a large enough cookie cutter, you can use that instead of a glass cup. Just my big circle cutters are misshapen, so I don't like to use that for donuts. I should really get rid of it and get new ones, because I think it would be a lot easier to do this with a cookie cutter. I think I'm gonna have to have a donut party because I'm getting more than I got on Hanukkah when I made this for the first time, and even then I had to share it. I shared with family, and I had made it on a Thursday, so it was the Shabbos dessert too. And I still had extra on Sunday. So I took all the remaining dough. I'm going to roll it out again. I'm going to keep doing this until I use all of the dough. And now I know from last time that this dough, once I re-roll it, they spring back. You can see already. So they're going to have a different shape. They're going to look different than these that I rolled the first time around. Okay, I have just a little bit left. It's about what 2 of them would be. So this is also what I did last time. Just push down on it, formed a rough circle. It's okay if it's not perfect. It's all about the taste here. Now that I've got all of this formed and shaped, we are going to cover them and let them rise again for about 2 to 4 hours, depending on the temperature in your kitchen, until they look slightly puffy. So it's covered with plastic wrap. I'm going to cover it with a towel too. And we'll see you in a little while. So it's been about 3.5 hours now. I was busy with other things, and these are looking nice and puffy. I mean, obviously the plastic wrap is holding it down, so we can't see that much, but they definitely did puff up. So we came over here, and I am heating up some oil. I did put in a popcorn seed. Once that pops, I know that the oil is hot, and we can start frying. So our kernel has popped. Our oil is hot, so I'm going to get it out. I'm going to get the donuts in here. And I'm putting it in with the paper. And after frying for just a couple minutes, I'll be able to easily peel it off. Or you can try to remove it first. I'm going to do that with the next batch. I'm going to fry it a couple minutes on each side until it's golden brown. I'm also getting a cookie sheet ready over here with a cooling rack. And as the donuts are coming out, we're going to get it on there to let any excess oil drain off. Look at that beautiful color. Oh wow, look how it puffed up. So if you want, you can sprinkle it with confection sugar now as it's coming out. And I forgot to say earlier that if you're making a custard, then while it was rising, those 2 to 4 hours, that's when you should have made the custard so that it has time to cool off and set up before all of the custard is made. Can I fit in 4? I think I could fit 4. Oh my goodness, I forgot about this for a minute. And they are burnt. Okay. I have one more batch to do, and I think we're going to give this a taste test. And I want to make sure that the inside is done. Yes, beautiful, eerie. It's cooked through. Gorgeous. Let's taste this. Well, just the dough for itself is delicious. I mean, if you're eating it plain, I would suggest putting the confection sugar on top. If you're having the custard, you don't need it. As you can see, every batch of donuts coming out of the fryer had a different doneness, and especially that one and burnt one over there. But they're all going to be enjoyed, some with custard, some without, some with confection sugar, some without. We're going to work on our focaccia now. So I'm getting my bowl onto the scale. I'm going to clear it. And I've got some beautiful active starter. Now we're going to do 100 grams of this. Next we're going to add the water, 360 grams. And this is a new recipe that we're trying. We tried a focaccia in last sourdough video. Yeah, I think I did try a focaccia then. It didn't come out. So we're trying a different recipe this time. And we'll see how this one comes out. Okay, now we can get this back on the scale.
Now we're going to add the flour. And the recipe does call for bread flour. 450 grams. And then the recipe calls for 10 grams of fine sea salt. I only have coarse. So we're going to grind it in. Okay. Now the recipe says to knead this with the dough hook, or with your hands for about 5 minutes until there are no dry bits of flour. So I'll be here a little while and I'll show you guys what it looks like when it all comes together, when I'm done kneading it or whisking it. Okay, so there are no more dry bits of flour, and this is a wet dough, and it's supposed to be like that. Focaccia is a very, the ratio of water to flour is way more than a standard, the hydration is way more than a standard bread would be. That's what makes it so unique in the texture of the end product. Okay, so now we're going to cover this and we're going to let this sit for 45 minutes before we do our first stretch and fold. Okay, so it's been 45 minutes. I'm going to wet my hands, remove my rings. We're going to do a stretch and fold. So for this, we're going to do the traditional way, not the way I usually do it. And we're going to go a few times around. And like I said earlier, this is a way more hydrated dough than a standard one, so it's going to be a lot stickier. But you can already see a difference from when we finished kneading it and now, how much progress it's made. Okay. I think we're good. We're going to cover it. We're going to let it sit now for 30 minutes. Okay, so it's been another 30 minutes. We're going to do another set of stretch and folds. Same thing as before. Okay, we're going to let this go for another 30 minutes and do another set of stretch and folds. So we're doing 3 stretch and folds total. First one 45 and then twice at 30. Now that we've done our third set of stretch and folds, we're going to let this rest for 3 to 5 hours before we continue on to the next step. Okay, so it's now been 3.5 hours about. This is nice, jiggly, puffy, double in size, I'd say. The recipe does say that you have a lot of bubbles on top. I don't see that. I see some bubbles. So we're going to move on to the next step because I still want to enjoy this today. So we're going to get a 9x13. This is slightly smaller, but I'm going to use this. I'm going to line this with parchment paper. And to get this to sit nicely inside, I'm going to crumple it up, open it up. Now it sits in here way nicer. Now we're going to get some oil in here. I'm going to spread it out so it lines the entire bottom. Okay, once I have the oil spread, I'm going to get this dough into the pan. Okay, so I spread it out loosely. Now I actually need your help. If you can pour just a little bit of oil over here. I have a helper. Actually, she's becoming a helper. Just a little bit, not too much. Woo! That was generous. Okay, I'm gonna spread that over the top. I'm gonna wash my hands before we move on. And we're gonna cover this with saran wrap. And we're gonna let this rise for an hour in here. Okay, so we can take this off. And there's so much oil here, I'm not gonna get more, but if you don't have so much oil, then just get your hands oily and all 10 fingers. Just create some grooves in it. And now you can add any toppings on here. I'm just going to sprinkle some sea salt. And now I have my oven preheated to 425, and this is going to bake for 35 to 40 minutes until golden brown. So this just came out of the oven. We're going to let this rest. Actually, I'm going to take it out of the pan first. So let's do that. Now we're going to let this cool for ideally 20 minutes, but we want this for dinner and it's already late. We're going to let it cool for just a little bit, and then we're going to cut into it. Okay, so we had this cooling on the cooling rack for a little bit. I transferred it onto the board to cut it. I also got here some herb-infused oil that I made. Didn't make it today, but I made it a few weeks ago. So let's cut into this. I think I'm going to go 3 across. Wow, it's still really hot. Oh, wow. Look at this, so beautiful. Look at those bubbles. You want to taste? Taste. You want to dip it in the oil? Maybe tear off a piece. I put a lot of salt, way more salt than I thought. It might be very salty. Ooh, it's hot still. Let's see. First, let's taste it for this, what it is. Oh, yes. Oh, wow. Delicious flavor. Let's taste it with the oil. Wow. Delicious. You might just have to wait. Let me cut the rest of it. And we're going to enjoy this with our dinner. This focaccia was a winner, and this will definitely be made again in this house. We loved it. We devoured it. As you can see, I'm cutting into it, and my whole family's tasting it right here from the island, and we just couldn't get enough. The herb-infused oil was delicious. It adds so much flavor to it. I have to try to keep this in stock in my house, keep making them again, so that we always have it, because it was so delicious. It was a great addition to have with this focaccia. We then took this board to the table with our dinner plates, and we demolished this entire thing. There was not a piece left. Now we're going to work on some sourdough sandwich rolls. And first thing we're going to put in is a 1/4 cup of butter, which is a 1/2 stick. Let me cut this in half. And we're going to have this with chicken as a chicken sandwich. So I'm using a plant-based butter. And I'm putting in the butter first because the recipe does say that it should be at room temperature. But this plant-based butter comes to room temperature pretty quick. Even if it's not really at room temperature yet, I just mix it a little bit longer until it incorporates well. So next I have here our sourdough starter, which is nice and bubbly. And we're going to measure out 1 cup of this. Next, we're going to add 1 cup of water. 2 tablespoons of honey. And I usually just eyeball this. 1½ teaspoons of salt. And last will be 3 cups of bread flour. You can do all-purpose flour as well. I usually start with 2½. I measure out my remaining 1/2 cup, but I set it aside and will add it slowly if needed. So I usually just put on the splash guard. Now I'm going to turn on the machine. I'm going to add the flour as needed, a little bit at a time. Okay, I think this is good now. So we're going to get this out of the bowl. And here I have a greased bowl. We're going to get our dough in here. And I like to just swirl it around a little bit to get everything coated in that oil. I'm going to push it down a little bit. Okay, now we're going to cover this with plastic wrap and a towel. And we're going to let this rest and ferment for 8 to 12 hours. So we're going to see you in the morning, first thing in the morning, and we're going to, hopefully this will be doubled in size. So I'll see you then. Okay, so it's now just about over 9 hours since we made the dough, and it has risen beautifully. So we're going to start by lining a parchment cookie sheet with parchment paper. Okay, I've made this already a few times. I'm going to try today to do it with a rolling pin and see if they come out a little bit nicer than they usually do for me. I'm going to get some flour on the counter. Let me double check the recipe to see how many rolls we're supposed to get. Okay, so it's supposed to make 6 rolls. I'm going to take this out. I'm going to save this plastic wrap. The dough will release itself from the bowl. It might just take a minute. So I'm going to divide this dough in 6. Not exactly even. What I'm also going to do today is I'm going to roll 3 the way that the recipe says. I'm going to make 3 into sort of like a burger bun. So for the burger bun, I'm just going to pinch it all together at the bottom. Like that. And then I'm going to just roll it like that a little bit. And then push it down. Because what happens is, like, it's going to shrink back. But as it's rising, it's going to go up. It won't spread out again. So you want to spread it out the most possible. Okay, so now to make these like the recipe calls for, I am going to roll it into a rectangle. Good. Let's see what I'm doing. There you go. And then I'm going to roll it up. And I'm going to pinch the ends. Tuck it under. It looks like a mini baguette. I'm going to push it down as well so that it can rise up. And onto the cookie sheet. I'm going to do the same thing with the rest of our dough. Roll it out, roll it up, pinch the ends, push down, and transfer. Okay, so now we're going to cover these again with a plastic wrap. Cover with a towel. And we're going to let this rest for 1 to 3 hours, depending on the temperature in your kitchen, I guess. I'm not sure how much time has passed, but these have risen beautifully. And I have preheated my oven to 375. So I am, and it's ready. So I am scoring my rolls with a razor. This is not a must, but I like to do that. And then I'm also going to spray the tops with some water before baking and then halfway during baking. And this helps make a crispy outside and soft inside. So I baked these rolls for 20 minutes total. At the 10-minute mark, I opened up the oven. I sprayed the tops again with the water, closed the oven again, and baked it for another 10 minutes. So these just came out of the oven. They look beautiful. They have risen more than they have in the past for me. The only thing we have to do now, as it cools, is we're going to separate these. And I am going to, oh, I threw down the towel. I'm going to cover it so that it doesn't form a tough crust on the outside. Thinking, should I take it off of the sheet pan? I think I will. I'll actually take it off of the sheet pan so that the bottom doesn't continue baking. I could take it off of the paper as well. These are getting me so excited for dinner tonight. Okay. And cover. It's now many hours later, and it's time to eat dinner. As you can see, one of the round ones were taken already. Yeah, I think I'll do my sandwich on this one for now. Let's see. I think I'll cut through it all the way. Beautiful inside, nice and soft, delicious. So I'm gonna build my sandwich now. Now, usually I make this chicken on burger buns. That's why I made round buns. Because what I do is that I cut a cutlet in half and I fry it like this. So that's why I'm cutting it into slices to get it on this sandwich. Because I feel like it'll be easier to eat this way. I don't remember if I mentioned earlier, but this recipe, sandwich rolls, I've made already in the past. So we know, I went in knowing that we like this. I just shaped it a little bit differently, and it worked out beautifully this way. The only thing I would do different is that if I make it into burger buns next time, I would divide it into 8 or 10, to make 8 or 10 burger buns, because they were very big and too much to eat. This bun has so much flavor to it. The texture is perfect. I'm gonna enjoy this. I'll see you on the next one. The next thing we're working on is our pizza. So for this one, I fed my starter at night, and now first thing in the morning, we are making the dough. So I'm starting off with adding 100 grams of the active starter into my bowl. Next, I'm going to add 325 grams of room temperature water. Now I'm going to get the bowl off of the scale, and I'm going to combine the starter and water. Now this is first thing in the morning, so I'm going to remove any audio, and I didn't use my mic to tell you what I'm doing because A, still having morning voice, and B, the chaos of everyone getting ready for the day it's just too much. Now once the starter is fully incorporated with the water, I'm going to get the bowl back on the scale, and we're going to start adding 450 grams of bread flour and 100 grams of, 50 grams of whole wheat flour. Once I've added the flour, I'm going to remove the bowl again from the scale, and using my Dutch whisk, I'm going to incorporate this, mix it, combine it all until a shaggy dough forms. Then I'll cover it and set it aside. Between 30 minutes and an hour later is when I come back to this, and we're going to get it back on the scale. And now we're going to add 10 grams of salt and another 25 grams of room temperature water. And this time I'm going to incorporate it with my hand until I don't feel any more grains of salt. Once I have reached that point, I am going to cover it again, and we're going to come back every 30 minutes and do a stretch and fold. And this I do for the first hour and a half. So I do 3 sets of stretch and folds, the 30-minute mark, hour 30.
And then I'm just going to let it rest until the dough is ready to be shaped.
This is the third stretch and fold that I did. I'm gonna cover it with a plastic wrap so it doesn't form a crust on the top, which can happen sometimes if you have it just with a towel. And we're gonna wait until it's like nice and bubbly and ready to be shaped, but instead of shaping it, we're gonna divide it and get it ready for pizza. Okay, it's now time to shape the sourdough. So I'm gonna start off by prepping 3 pieces of of saran wrap. I'm gonna get a little bit of oil on each of these pieces of plastic wrap. Now that these are ready, we can get some flour on the counter. And I've got our beautiful dough here. I maybe could have left it for a bit longer, but I have some errands to run outside the house. And after this stage, we're going to set it in the fridge. You want it to be in the fridge for at least an hour before we go and make it into pizzas. So we're going to let the dough fall out of the bowl. And I think covering it with a saran wrap while we let it rest and rise was brilliant. Now, you guys can see, we're going to divide this into 3. Roughly the same size. And we're going to roll it as if we're making a bread. You want to get it into a nice tight dough ball. Once you have it in a nice tight ball, I'm going to coat it in the oil that we had prepared over here. This will help prevent it from sticking to the plastic. I'm going to repeat the same thing with the rest of the 2 dough balls. Now we're just going to wrap this up. I'm going to push down on it a little bit so it fills up the entire space. Now what I like to do is put it into a Ziploc bag in case any of the oil leaks. So we're just going to set it in here. We're going to get it into the fridge until we're ready to make our pizzas. And again, you want it to sit in the fridge at least an hour. But because I'll be out of the house, I'm doing it now. It's going to be in the fridge a little bit longer. And that's okay. We're almost ready to eat. So I've got a parchment paper here. Debating if I should dust it with flour. I think I should. You can do flour or you can do cornmeal on the bottom over here. It's up to you. Cornmeal would give it more of a crust. We're going to transfer the dough onto the floured parchment paper. And I'm working with 1 dough ball at a time because that's how much I can fit into the oven at once. Okay, now starting from the center, we're going to push out. And I like to turn it like this so that I can stretch it all the way. I'm going to let it relax a little bit and then do it again. And I should be able to stretch it even more. Okay, so the oven has reached temperature. So I'm going to do this again. So letting it sit, what it does is it relaxes the gluten in the dough. And then you can stretch it even more. Let me get it centered on this paper. I think this is the best I'll get it. Okay, here I've got some roasted pizza sauce that I made in the summer with our garden tomatoes. And we're going to spread this out onto the dough. And if you like it more saucy, put more sauce. You like it less saucy, put less sauce. And then I got a brick of mozzarella cheese that I shredded up. I like shredding my own cheese because it doesn't have the anti-caking agent that bagged shredded cheese has, and it melts better. Got a nice amount on here. And now we're going to work super fast. Now I preheated my oven to 550 degrees with a cookie sheet inside because I don't have a pizza stone. If you have a pizza stone, you can use that. I'm going to pull this out. Drop this on here. And we're going to let this bake for 10 to 12 minutes. And while that's in the oven, I'm going to pull out another pizza dough so it's not as cold when we start shaping it. I'm also going to get out a cooling rack so that we can get the pizza on here. We're going to let it cool for a little bit and then cut into it. Okay, it's been about 5 minutes. So there's about another 5 minutes for the first pizza in the oven. So we're going to start the first stretch of the second dough. Okay, I'm going to let this rest again. Ooh, yum! Wow, look at that. I'm going to get it off of the cookie sheet. I'm going to get this back in the oven. I'm going to set this aside so we can finish our second one. We got the second pizza into the oven. We brought the first one back, cut it into 8 slices, I think we did. And we each grabbed a few to enjoy. And I find that if I just make one and I wait to make the second one, then we fill up from the first. And nobody wants to eat a second one, so I don't even bother making it. But I feel like it's not enough of a meal when it's just one of these pizzas for the 3 of us. So that's why I like making the second one right away. And I don't think we even ate that much from the second one either. So we shared it with some friends and it was all eaten up, enjoyed, and it was delicious. And the extra sourdough bowl I saved, I put it into the freezer. And as of this voiceover, I actually took it out of the freezer now at night, and I'm gonna let it defrost in the fridge till tomorrow, and tomorrow we're gonna have that for dinner. Oh wow, it's been a long time, but look, I managed to get the crust so super thin. It's holding up. The cheese is delicious. That sauce, look at that, the browning on the bottom.
Is it sourdough?
It is so good. It's sourdough, yeah.
Sourdough is the sauce. What sauce is it?
Garden sauce. Wow, it's delicious. I'm gonna sit down and enjoy this. Okay, the last thing we'll be making is some discard crackers. I want to be able to have this tomorrow for breakfast, so I'm doing this at night. And that's a good thing about it because you don't have to use active starter as long as you have enough. It doesn't matter. It can be just fresh starter that you just fed. It can be starter that you've used and it's sitting. If you're taking it out of the fridge, let it come to room temperature a little bit before you're actually using it. Or it can be discard. Doesn't matter. So we're going to start off with 10 grams of this, and I hope that we have enough. Maybe I'll just do half. I think I'll have to do half a recipe. It's a little bit more than 105. We're doing half. That'll have to work. I'm going to add 26 grams of oil. Just a little bit of sea salt. I'm going to combine this a little bit before I start adding the flour. I don't think it's actually going to incorporate much, so I'm going to add 50 grams of all-purpose flour and 22 grams of whole wheat flour. The recipe that I will have for you down below will be different amounts because it'll be the full recipe. So we're going to mix this until we get a nice smooth dough. Okay, this feels good. So what we're going to do next is we're going to get out a parchment paper to roll this out on. I'm also actually preheating the oven to 350. Got a parchment paper here. Gonna get the dough on here, but we're basically just gonna roll it out into a nice rectangle, or the most rectangle that I can. I got it thin enough where it's starting to tear in certain spots. So we're gonna call this good. Next I'm gonna take a sharp knife, or you can do a pizza cutter. And we're gonna cut it into pieces, however big you would want your crackers to be. Okay, now you can add your topping of choice. I think I'm going to do everything but the bagel on about a third of them. I have this Green Goddess seasoning blend. It is made of minced onions, salt, garlic, black pepper, chives, green onions, spinach powder, lemon powder, dried parsley. And we're going to add this. Oh, this doesn't have a cover, so I got to be careful. I don't want to overdo it. I'll do this at another third, and a third of it we'll leave empty. And I feel like over here, this one doesn't have a lot. Okay. Now that we've got the toppings, you can do Zaatar, you can do Dill, you can do sea salt. I think actually I'll do sea salt on some of this. I don't think I want any plain. I'm happy I decided to add the sea salt because this was actually my favorite topping. Here we go. We're going to get this onto a cookie sheet. I may have rolled it too big, but we're going to get this into a 350-degree oven for 25 to 30 minutes. When these were golden crispy and delicious, I took it out of the oven and got it onto a cooling rack off of the cookie sheet and to let it cool. And I also made sure that nothing was touching and anything that wasn't fully cut through. I broke apart and I let it cool like this for a little bit before putting it away. So next morning, I made myself some egg salad here. Cut up some cucumber. And we're going to taste this. I took a few of the crackers with everything spice, a few with Green Goddess, and a few with sea salt. I should really taste it plain first. Oh, wow. Delicious. Wow, it's really good. I'm going to taste a little bit of every topping. Really good. I'm going to enjoy my breakfast. Brunch at this point. That wraps up my sourdough baking days. If you enjoyed this slow baking, you're always welcome to stay a while, subscribe, or just come back next time. Thanks for watching.